and my argument was they simply can't do worse than they did last split. And I think I also said like they're gonna develop because of their time spent together. This was an acid flashback for them. This was post-traumatic stress disorder. They woke up and it was spring of 2023, and they spent a week in there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Salt Mine. This is Season 2, Episode number 3. We are fresh off week number 2 of the NACL, and we have got some interesting results to show for it. I'm Gordo. I'm joined with a smaller episode. Got Bonfire and TDS on today, my two color casters, going to be joining me to break down this week of action. 30 more games, and a lot of fun there, to say the least, as we've got teams rising up in the standings, we got teams falling down in the standings. We'll get into those in a little bit. But let's start off with Player of the Week, as I'm gonna let one of you guys take this one first. I have a real clear candidate, and I want to see if you guys end up with the same choice as I do for Player of the Week.
TDS, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I don't think we're going to have the same, but I already kind of hinted the player that I'm been the most impressed with and the one that impressed me the most this week, and it's Samudo on the top lane from Wildcard. I think that he's been playing really, really great. He did an amazing job at neutralizing essentially Fake God, which is not only one of the better players in the league, but also potentially the best top laner. So the fact that he was able to not only neutralize him, but find so much value for Wildcard consistently in the games and then against TSG and in other games, I feel like it goes to show how well Samudo is doing, and it's his first split back after being on Korea. So really taking the lessons over there and applying them as best as possible. Really been impressed with him, and hopefully it keeps on getting better with him in Wildcard.
Yeah, I'll go Faisal. I think that it's not easy to join a team that already kept most of their core, and I think that there were a lot of expectations on his shoulder going into FlyQuest, and I think that he's just done past the expectations with flying colors. Had a really good second week. I don't think anything really sticks out in terms of like superstar performances, but FlyQuest ended up going 5-1, and Faisal held his own. And again, you know me, I'm the storyline guy. I go off of plots and that kind of stuff. And I think that the storyline of like having the expectations and surpassing them and doing just as well, if not better, is very impressive to me. So I give it to Faisal. I think a bit more of like a sneaky pick, but has really impressed me with his short stint so far on FlyQuest.
Yeah, I think Faisal's a really cool option there. I do love me some Samudo as well. Like, I'm just getting higher and higher on him every single week. His mechanics just impress me so much. We can talk about that in a second. But to round out what our picks are going to be, mine is Keel. I think Keel has a terrific run this week from Wildcard. Probably the best I've seen out of him in his time in the NACL, which is great to see as he kind of comes in. With the introduction of provisional teams, there's this big influx of players who had been around the scene for a while, but who had not necessarily been picked up for academy, right? Had like always been right on the fringes and had never really gotten their shot. And Keel was kind of one of those guys, right, who comes in with a couple extra years on him. You think of guys like Sketch and Trevor as well, and million players like this that came in with the provisional introduction. But Keel, I feel like, has grown like a huge amount ever since coming into NACL. And I've been super impressed with him. I think this is his best week ever. He has 2 fantastic Kindred games. He has 2 fantastic Kha'Zix games. He has a good Poppy game in there, and he plays a Mumu as well. I mean, I'm not gonna say that game was particularly impressive, but the rest is just completely great. He gaps a lot of people in the early games, and he's a big part of this 5-1 week for Wildcard for me.
Yeah, Wildcard I feel like is definitely the team that everyone had their eyes on this week, kind of came out of nowhere and have catapulted themselves to tied second in the standings. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that you guys both grabbed a Wildcard player. 8-4 in their game record, tied with FlyQuest Challengers. I do want to say I was incorrect about the FlyQuest Challengers. I think 5-1 was the first week, and
They
they
went
were
5-1 this week too, didn't they?
I I'm not
They
sure.
went
Now I'm
5-1
questioning
this week.
myself.
Last week they went.
Yeah, they went 5-1 this week.
I think they
All
went
right.
3-3 last week. It
Yeah.
was.
They had a worse week number 1 for sure.
Yeah.
They went 3-1. Yeah, they went 3-3 in week 1 cuz they had to play TL Challengers. So, it's a little
Okay.
So
unfair
here I
there.
am. Here I am. All right, never mind. I am way off right now. But anyways, I wild card. I think impressed a lot of people.
And we were kind of hyping the matchup, the last matchup potentially with Wildcard and DSG as one of the ones that could really jump. Because we were saying, I remember last week we were talking about how Wildcard, if not for how they played a couple of games, really could have been 5-1 as well. Like they could have been contesting for top spot last week already. And now with this great of a week, they're already on the top three standings, really good, contesting with FlyQuest Challengers. I think going to give a really good fight. And the I remember a bit of the conversation was who is going to go against the top three that people kind of have already in mind, right? The TLC, FlyQuest C, and also the DSG. Those were the top three that people really have in their minds. And then who is going to try and go into them and try and face them as much as possible? And it feels like Wildcard really is setting up to be that. They still have to yet to complete the roster, but they're already showing great things. And I feel like even when Isles gets here, the potential for that roster can go higher. Although there's also the argument that maybe Isles can turn this around in a bad way, but I feel like it should go up only for Wildcard, honestly.
Yeah, let's take this opportunity then to transition into talking about the newcomer of the week, who is Don Bray, who comes in on wildcard in the support position. They take out Duo King, they put him in. Don't have a lot of insider information on that. I was looking through. I was surprised to see him in there, and I was looking through the wildcard Twitter and stuff. I couldn't find anything about it. But hyped to see Don Bray here. I mean, he was off of that Evil Geniuses Prodigies team. Haven't really seen him too much since then. And I think he has a really impressive first week here on towards Wildcard. I mean, the whole team looks really good, but he has a couple of really great Recon games in there. I don't know if we've gotten to see a huge amount of champion pool depth out of him quite yet, as I feel like he plays like 3 or 4 games of Recon at least. And then, Enchanter meta being what it is means we don't get to see too much otherwise. But I think he has a really great showing in what is his rookie week of the NACL. The team looks better than they did with Duo King, which really surprises me, as I think we all kind of shared this idea that we were concerned about Wildcard losing their identity with Moose Hater and Duo King stepping away. And now I have seen them win games without having them. I've seen what this new identity kind of looks like, and now I'm kind of excited because if they stick with Don Bray, I could see him growing and getting better. Or if they put in Isles, I mean, Isles is a very talented support in his own right, and I'm really curious to see what heights he can take this team to.
Yeah, I mean, look, whenever someone joins a team, it's the same thing as the Faisal conversation where it's like, are you going to mess the chemistry up? Are you going to fit into the team composition? And I think one of my biggest concerns when he joined the team, also very well. I think you ask a lot of hardcore NA fans who Don Bray is before this week, and even they wouldn't know. Obviously, Gordo, you're not one of those people. You're better than that. What can I say? But I didn't know he was. I
Constructed
was not.
alternatively.
Dude, I was not Don Bray pilled. I was unaware of this Don Bray power, and to come into a team and then to ensure that they have one of their strongest weeks in org history in the NACL, very, very impressive. So, give him his roses, credit where credit is due. Don Bray showed up in the right way, and I think it also it's important, right? Because I think there's a conversation that a lot of people have when you bring in a new player, it's something's going wrong, we need to change it. Don Bray wasn't really in that situation. The first week was fine for wild card. I don't think they needed to change, but they decided to. And that brings up the question of like, should this be more like traditional sports where even if things are going okay, you can still have a fluid transition of substitutions? And I don't know. I think that's a conversation to be had.
Well, and that's a really good analogy to try and make here because it made me think kind of the good teams that have already a set defined style. In typical sports, it happens, right? Where you already have a set defined style that you can plug and play players in any way, and they are not going to mess up the way that the team is playing. So I really feel like Wildcard is getting that sort of thing going for them. Obviously, it's going to be better, and especially I think in League of Legends, having a consistent roster is almost always great to get things done a bit better over the time. But the fact that they are able to plug and play players here, players that we haven't even heard from in a while, like Dumbre. Obviously, it's surprising to see him come through so out of nowhere and then be able to perform really well. But I think it goes to show how well Wildcard is being managed, how well the players are meshing together, and how well they are playing together as well. The other four can make up for that one difference there, and it allows for the team to keep on evolving. And that's why I think they are going to keep on getting better when they get Isles. Because now that when they get their support, that it's going to be consistent, that they are going to play with 100% of the time, I think that they can keep on improving and make things better for themselves. I don't know why, but Wildcard kind of reminds me to how Fear was starting last split, with more so than just cheesy wins with certain champions that nobody expected, like Wildcard did in the previous split with the Garen and things like that. They are doing just a typical but really well played games with meta comps, with champions played really well, with players having great performances, and I think that that's a really good sign for Wildcard moving forward as well.
Yeah. One more interesting thing about Donbray, actually, just to finish out the Donbray point, is, yeah, he's been gone for most of 2023. Don't really know what he's been up to during that time, but in his, like, super young career, like, he kind of just started in 2021 with the Proving Grounds era. He's made a run, like, exclusively through LCS affiliate amateur orgs, like, during that time. Like, he started on TSM Amateur, and then he was on 100 Thieves Next for a bit, and then he was on Evil Genius's Prodigies, and those are, like, the only teams that he's been on. Like, he has not really participated in the OQ circuit for NACL outside of that, which is...
I think it says he's currently on college, by the way. It says he's on Winthrop.
Yeah, I think he is, but I don't think he does. I don't think he starts for them, right? Because they run.
Maybe he's in the university.
Yeah,
right?
because
like
they always run.
Member.
They always run Kenji, right? Sir Kenji is always the support they're running, so he might be a sub or something there. At least in my memory, but I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. Collegiate is Nyarko's game. He might know, but we don't have Nyarko here.
Yeah, we're missing Nyarko. The one time we need his collegiate expertise, he's missing.
And the one time we're gonna take collegiate seriously, no.
I know.
Also, the one week where Maryville does great.
It is. Yeah. It is also the 1 week where Maryville does great. It's once again the week where we have to shut up about making fun of collegiate. I don't even make fun of collegiate that much. It's really TDS.
I never make fun of them. I just feel pity for them. That's it.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right. And on the subject of newcomers, though, technically. This is not the only person making their NACL debut this week. It's also Acadian coming in the jungle with his first NACL game. Did have plenty of Academy games, did have plenty of LCS games, but not any NACL games. Now he does in what is a little bit of a disaster scenario for AoE Gold, as they end up having to sub in Acadian and move Will to Marksman due to a little bit of a Lynx power outage, internet outage, some kind of disruption in his ability to play the game. Just real unfortunate for them, and especially ends up being really tough for them in what is a important matchup. You got to feel up against Maryville, with both of these teams kind of towards the bottom of the table. You definitely want to be able to take those wins where you can get them, and it's not like it was guaranteed for AoE anyway, given how good of a week Maryville had, but they just do not look competitive at all in that series.
Honestly, it felt really... It felt like Acadian certainly hadn't been playing in a while, without trying to imply anything. Like, I think Odd Orange run him really well, and then he really didn't find his stride in the game. The weirdest part is, or because it happened to things like that, right? Didn't they have an opportunity to just call any other AD carries? That I feel like...
I think it was like literally last minute. Like, I think it was like they were... Is like day of, right? Yeah, not just day, like hour of. Like, I think they were anticipating running Lynx up until like champion select.
Which I also think it's kind of the harshest part, because I feel like Will is one of the better players from AoE. So you're taking one of your better players, in my eyes, putting
Yeah.
him off role, and then filling the gap with a jungler that hasn't played competitive in a while.
Yeah, and oh, and you know,
It
I
was
actually
good.
remember it more thoroughly now. I didn't watch the games live, Father's Day and all that, but I do remember seeing the tweet. I think the stream even started late because they were the first game of the day, and they were like, "Oh,
Yep.
Link's just lost power, so we're gonna be starting a little bit late on the stream." So it's like, yeah, I think it was really last minute, really disastrous. I guess, you know, while we're talking about Maryville and AOE and that matchup, like this game like means nothing to me. Like I'm pretty much completely disregarding it in my opinions of the players and the teams. I based on how that Frankenstein AOE roster looked, I think any team in this league 2-0s them pretty easily. As you said, I think Odd Orange cleared Acadian pretty easy in that first game, and then in that second game, Scary Jerry Aphelios just 2v2 gets a double kill
Yeah.
on the substitute Will 80 carry bot lane, and then like just goes legendary. Like Scary Jerry just runs the map from there with his lead. It's like, I don't know. It's just it's very unfortunate that that happened to AOE, but it's like I'm just kind of throwing that game in the garbage, which is unfortunate for Maryville as well because they were having the kind of form this weekend where it looked like they could have legitimately challenged a full power AOE. But because this is the roster they end up playing with, I find it to be completely meaningless. I don't know about you guys.
Importantly, though, standing wise, it's crucial for them because they still we still have to consider the fact that we're going to towards relegation later on. So the fact that they are able to get this sort of victories are important. It may feel bad, but when there's relegation involved, you have to take this sort of victories 100% of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the double round robin format at least gives them like a little bit of a bailout. Like this would have
Yeah.
been really bad in the 16 team format where you played everybody once because then
It's
you're
like
like,
TL first getting that a
yeah,
free win and saving themselves from relegation would have
yeah,
been
it's like
hilarious,
this
but
is
no.
the one time you have to play against one of those other competitors at the bottom of the table, and it's like just
Yeah.
have to come near to forfeiting like that is just very rough.
I just feel bad for I mean I feel bad for a lot of people in that situation, but Acadian like has just been prepping as he's not even the head coach, he's the assistant coach, and he's helping with replays and he's getting everything set up. He's probably so focused on this new job of his that he doesn't have time to play solo queue and to prep with the team on the Rift, and then they're just like, "Hey Acadian, you have to play in a pretty pivotal relegation battle matchup." And he's like, "Okay, I'll do my best." But this was not the Acadian of old. This is not an LCS starter Acadian that we used to see. Like, this was rough. And I think that it's just an unfortunate situation. I don't think it's like indicative of AoE Gold having like, oh, why couldn't they find someone else? Like, it's just a poor situation. And it might, I think TDS brings up a good point, right? Like, when you have a relegation system, these matchups matter a lot more than one might think because mid-table teams get to stay in the league and this could keep Maryville in the mid-table.
And importantly, I think with the league system, how it's currently set up, because we manage like the way that the NACL works, right? It's BO2s. It's no BO3, so there's no difference between, or there's a difference between winning and losing here. Tying matters. So the fact that Maryville can get this 2-0 victory, and then in the future matchup, they may get a 1-1 instead. Like that already gives them a winning record against AoE. So that can be a difference between relegating and being relegated or not. Like one victory can really make the difference here. Now AoE will have potentially a losing record against Maryville, so it's important to keep those things in mind. And the fact that they got the 2-0 can matter really on the long run. Like it's not only the victory; it's the 2-0 difference now.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's like a really tight bottom of the table as well. There's like 2 games separating fourth and 10th. Like this was a good opportunity for AoE to kind of pull ahead of that relegation zone, and instead they are firmly planted there.
Or at the very least, tie it, right? Not even just
Yeah,
separate themselves, but at the very least, keep it close enough that it can be salvageable later on.
yeah. So they're at 4-8, the same as Supernova and Team Fish Taco. All those teams sitting at the bottom. Team Fish Taco considered below the other two, as they do not have a 2-0 to their name. They have just had slightly more ties. So let's go ahead.
Oh, just wanted to say because I were jumping into Team Fish Taco because I just
I want to talk about Team Fish Taco a little bit
oh
because I have no idea what to make
yeah.
of this team anymore.
I
Because
know.
yeah, they are, as I said, they are in sole possession of last based on their current record, right? They're 4-8 in games, which is the same as AoE and Supernova, but they're also 0-4-2 in series. So they've tied 4 times, lost twice. They have never 2-0'd a series, and that
Yeah.
puts them below AoE and Supernova, who have each 2-0'd one series apiece. But gotten 0-2'd one more time than Team Fish Taco, and like, so they're obviously at the bottom of the standings, which should make them the worst team in the league. But they keep beating all our best teams. They take a game. They split a series with FlyQuest this week, and they split a series with Team Liquid this week. The two most consistent teams in the league by far. Both end up dropping games to Team Fish Taco. Where is this coming from? Like, are Team Fish Taco sleeper good? Are they just like the best early game team in the league? What's going on here?
I I think they are the best early team in the league, or maybe not the best, but I think they are contesting with that. I because I saw the TL series, right? I TL should have lost 2-0. Being honest here, I think TL should have lost 2-0. That first game they won was illegal to win. They should have never won that game. Team Fish Taco actually won them really well the early stage of the game. They neutralized APA, and I feel like this series and the Fear one showed perfectly how if you neutralize APA or if you make him completely unimportant to the game, it affects Steel so much. Like the difference with APA being ahead and him being behind is so big for TL that it matters how it goes forward. And I think in important matchups against DSG and FlyQuest and all the other top teams, it's going to be such an important thing to notice because that can really be the difference maker. But in this series particularly, I think that they run the early game so well. They control TL first the TL challengers really well in the first and second game. But they just are so bad after getting the lead. Like they know how to get the lead. They get the lead, and then the computer's turned off. That's the best way to put it. Like their computer's turned off after getting a lead past 15 minutes, and they cannot play the game. It's something that it's surprising to see. They're equal to a team. I don't remember which team it was. I think it was from LEC or LCS that just gets great leads and then cannot close out games
It was
for the live win.
2022 Golden Guardians, maybe.
Oh yeah, man.
The one with Pride Stalker.
Yeah, could be that. No, but I think it's one this year. Like, there's one this year that does that exactly and cannot close out games.
Team
Well,
Liquid.
actually, all of the LCS
Team
feels like
Liquid.
they do that.
Hey, Team Liquid's doing
No, Team
really well.
Liquid does win. Yeah, Team Liquid at least wins.
Not
I
in
feel like
spring.
I can
Not in
say
spring.
that for almost every team of the LCS. Like, they get leads and then they don't close out the game. So maybe there's a deeper problem. But, like, it's just so weird with TFT. I don't know what to make of them. I have belief in them, but belief doesn't win you games. And I'm not sure what to say about them.
Yeah, I
Honestly.
will. I'll make the counter argument there because you said, oh, they're sneaky good. They win their leads. They probably should have 2-0 TL. And then you went on to say, but they stink after they get their leads. That's
Yeah.
not a good team. That is not the mark of a good team. That is the mark of a team who is good at laning, maybe, and maybe a team who like
True.
knows how to get it. They are mechanically okay players, obviously, if they're able to get the leads. But I think that they just like flip a coin or draw like roll dice on how they're going to play out the rest of the game. That is why I think they're going to lose when it comes to the late game because I don't think there's a single team in the league who's concerned about TFT even if they fall behind because they kind of expect like all right, sure, you know, they laned a little better than us. They had a couple early jungle ganks that got us, you know, caught us. But at a certain point they are going to throw and in a sense, I mean that's you know, comparison, Dignitas Baron, baby. Like once they get that lead, they don't know what to do with it. Let's just at least go to the you know the Baron and see what happens. Obviously, it's not always Baron for TFT, but it's always something. And so I don't think this is a good team. I think that they have a shtick, and their shtick is an early lead, and I don't think it's going to last very long. And I think TL actually showed how to beat them in that game where APA got neutralized. Where it's like, even if you beat our best player and beat us on our game plan, you're still not going to beat us as a whole. So I'm anti-TFT, anti-team.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Anti-Team Fish Taco coming through.
Maybe they just warp the reality in my mind
I
so
will-
much that I'm
So-
kind of thinking they are a good team. And
Because
then
you
really
like
it's not.
you like fish tacos so much. That's why.
counter
I don't know,
argument. Counter here. As well, I agree. I think their macro has been disappointing. And I'm not gonna put them up as a staple of like team play or anything like that. What's really interested me is I kind of come out of Team Fish Taco like higher on almost all of their players than I was going in. Like it's very strange because usually on these teams, there's especially towards the bottom of the NACL, there's like one or two players where I'm just like, all right, I'm kind of done with this guy. Get him out of the league. Let's see who's next up. I'm not there on like anybody on Team Fish Taco, even though they're at the bottom. I think like even this week NXI, his Rakan games are real good. I think he shows a lot more on support this week than he did in week number 1, even though Team Fish Taco, I would argue maybe even as like a whole, like looked like more of a threat in week number 1. And Lunacia, like I'm not, the broadcast seems really down on Lunacia. Like the broadcast seems to really be pushing like he's slumping after how good he looked on FlyFam, but like I don't know, FlyFam was terrible, and I feel like this team looks way better than FlyFam, and I think Lunacia is getting to show more here than he did on FlyFam. Rosethorn has some real, like Rosethorn, Onat, I think are their keys to their games against FlyQuest and Team Liquid. I think mid jungle, managing to camp both Spyrax and APA completely out of the game is like their recipe for success there. And I think Spawn's had some good pop offs too. Like I actually have very few criticisms at a player by player level. I think clearly, you know, everybody's over aggressing a little bit. Everybody goes in a little too far. Onat and Lunacia especially, but I think all in all though, like I think all of these players like are rising up in the rankings for me, which is a very interesting thing for me to be saying about a last place team.
It kind of feels like you're giving Bonfire the like the reason here because
Yeah.
both of you said players are mechanically good, but after it's what matters.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
where
but
it
it's
falls
like
in.
I don't know.
And that's kind of the thing. I agree. It's just so weird
It's very
to say
weird
things about Team Fish Tackle. Like to make a good analogy about them, they are like fish. Like it's good for the
in a
first 15
taco.
minutes and then they go completely no, like it's fish that it's good for the first 15 minutes and then they go completely raw. Like they are left out of the freezer and they go completely meh immediately.
Uh,
Like that's the kind of thing that happens to fish if you don't freeze it or put it in somewhere that they can keep it cool. Cool, yeah. So it's just such a weird team to try and focus on. Like I wouldn't change any players either. The clear upgrade would be someone, an actual support over NXI. But I agree, NXI looked better this week. Obviously, I'm not sure if the mark should be Rakan games because I feel like almost everyone can play Rakan in the league. Like Dombre had a great week playing Rakan as well, and he came in on his first week. Obviously, not trying to pull down any player, but it feels like everyone can play Rakan. So hopefully, I can see a bit more from NXI. But if that's the best place you can upgrade on almost anyone from the team, and it's the the role swapped jungler, then honestly, this team has a lot of upside. If the rest of the members don't look that replaceable, I'm with Gordo on that. Like, I would still wait a bit and see how they perform. But in a
I
relegation system, you don't have that sort of leeway, though.
I was gonna say, I think that they
Yeah.
should. I think they should pull the trigger, get NXI out of here. I agree, he had a good week, but you know what this team is missing? This team is missing a shot caller, because good players get leads. Great players know when to listen to the leader and use their leads, and I don't think they have a shot caller. I think that's where a lot of their issues come from. NXI still is learning a new role, and I think even if he had a good week, I'm with you. Get a veteran in there, someone who's played the role before. They can do it in their sleep. They know where to ward, they know where to walk, how to play through vision, that kind of stuff. Everything a support needs to do. And someone who can just do that in their sleep and who can focus on other parts on the map. Let's go here now. Let's set up a 3-man gank. Like that is where they can improve upon. If they get a caller, like a veteran support, it could be really good for them. I think it could be really, really good for them.
Yeah, I will.
Counterpoint, I don't think they should get a veteran. I think they should get a rookie, but it's still a
Well,
small rookie.
All right. You might as well have a rookie already. You got the role swap jungler, but
yeah, I was
I mean,
gonna
to
say.
Bonfire's point, I don't think that's the thing. I'm not out on the NXI train just because he looks so much better week 2 than week 1. So like if he shows a similar jump in week 3 to what he showed from week 1 to week 2, then I think he might actually start getting like really good. So I'm in to give him more chances. If you were to do that though, I mean, when the roster was originally announced, there were people making the comments, right, that it's like, why are you role swapping NXI to support when all the support talent is out here and available, right? It's like Prismal's out there, Joey's out there, presumably, although I think he's still employed by Immortals in some capacity, but still, my guy might want to
Isn't he a
play.
coach now?
What was that?
Didn't he get into coaching with
Well, he was
Immortals or
got
any
brought on as the
positional or something
academy
like that?
coach, and then they dropped the whole academy team.
No, but I think didn't he get now into a
I
positional
think he's
coaching
like, yeah, I think
with
he's
the
like an
main
assistant
team?
coach on Main Immortals or something. But
Although, just as a quick thing, can we? I'm kind of interested now. Can we make like a list of players that are available, just so that we can see eventually who pulls the trigger and brings any sort of player in for any
Isn't
position?
isn't Poom available?
yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
actually.
Unless he's
Get
like riding the
Poom.
CLG bench. Yeah.
Get Poom.
He might be
Well,
still
CLG
under contract with
energy.
CLG,
Yeah,
so you
that's
might
true.
have to like CLG might want you to pay like a buyout or something, but
Yeah.
Wait, isn't CLG dead? Wouldn't it be under NRG?
Yeah,
sure, but same deal. You're right. I've never seen Poom in an NRG jersey, so
yeah,
my
it's
brain
true.
doesn't go
It's
there.
true. Boom actually vanished from existence when they merged. He just like went with the CLG and just vanished into thin air.
Yeah, no.
I'm a big Poomer. Any Poomers out there? I love Poom.
Yeah. Destiny retired, but that's
Bring him up.
retiring is relative. Whatever of the three wildcard supports they don't want anymore, you could grab any of those guys.
Yeah.
Between Duo King, Wildcard, and
Counterpoint. We bring
between
Duo
Duo King,
King
Donbray,
here.
and Isles.
Yeah, bring Dombre. Holy hell.
We just
Dardoch.
get no, we get Duo King and we see how everything unfolds.
Hey, you need
Imagine
a
Duo King on a bottom team. That is drama everywhere.
you
That
need
is
a
true
you need a
drama.
shot caller who's also used to role swapping from jungle to support. Boy, do I have someone for you. Have you heard Dardoch?
And Dardoch has just as much
Ooh.
experience at support as NXI does, but we've been belaboring who the Team Fish Taco potential support could be for a while. Let's let's move on and talk about some other teams. I want to talk about some of our rising stars in the league here. We talked about Wildcard a fair bit already. Let's talk a little bit about Maryville and the week that they have. I've already explained that their match against AoE is kind of meaningless to me. But they do split two other series in a solid manner, one of which against Wildcard, who's really good, and the other against Supernova. So, how are we feeling about Maryville and their growth coming into this week?
I you make the separation from AoE and from the AoE matchup. I want to make the separation from one of the games against Supernova because I still don't understand how the hell Supernova lost that one game. That it made no they countered them, they killed them at Baron, got Baron. I blanked for 2 minutes and they won the game. I still don't understand how that happened. Supernova lost the game so randomly, but I feel like there's been improvement from Maribel. I think it was you or Nyarko. I'm not sure if it was you or Slayer actually that said that they were still kind of feeling the or not feeling. They were coming back from the CLO finals
Mhm.
and they were still trying to get the practice going and things like that. And it feels like that's the case. Like after the week rest from CLO finals and getting back into the ride into the NACL like matchups and things like that, it seems like they certainly were more like not don't want to say jet lag, but certainly kind of resting and then now came back to play and the improvement is showing. Like I think the players are certainly showing back. And I think particularly Scary Jerry impressed me a lot this week from the side of Maryville. I think he played really, really great.
Yeah. And I'll say
Yeah.
conversely to the Supernova series, right? I think game two against Wildcard could have been a Maryville win as well. Like Zamudo kind of has to pop off in that last fight on Akshan,
Yeah.
get some big respawns, get some big kills if they can manage to mark him. I think he does a really great job of canceling out the Zeri with Akshan. I don't know if that's the reason for the pick or not, but he's got some items on Akshan. He's got some levels. He's got that really amped up comeuppance ultimate. And usually that's the worst ultimate in the game because it just bounces off the frontliner and it does no damage. But he manages to catch it like pretty much 100 to 0ing Zeri because Zeri's that champion who's always right jumping over walls, separating herself from the team, and then there's nowhere for Scary Jerry to go. And that's huge in Zamudo managing to turn around that fight. But if he doesn't do that, I think Maryville have a really solid shot of winning that game number two and actually 2-0ing wildcard here. So, yeah, definitely agree. It's like every game that Maryville's in where they don't get completely blown out of the water seems to totally descend into chaos. Like, I think Odd Orange and Niles have a tendency to just always go no matter what, and that can be a
Yep.
double-edged sword for sure. Uh, I don't know if this league will kind of train some discipline into them or if that's just always who they're going to be. But I'm very curious to see how they grow as this season comes on, given what we've gotten to see from them this week.
Yeah, I don't want to be the negative person, man. I really don't, but I
Yes, you
for
do.
Miracle,
Feed
I
into it,
do.
Bonfire.
Oh man, all right, all right. You know what? I'll just accept it. I just don't believe that this is. I think that you can have a good week, and I just don't think it's gonna matter. Like I think that this Maryville team is mid, and they will be sixth or seventh or fifth, and we're all gonna forget about this week eventually, and it'll be like they had a couple good, not tenth core. I can see you TDS. They're not gonna be tenth
As I
because
said, I think
Supernova.
I think fifth would be a huge win for this Maryville team, actually.
Yeah, maybe I was high on fifth. The point is, they're not going to make playoffs. I don't even think that they're going to like finish in the top
Well,
six. I have them at seventh. I think that this is like every dog has their day. Maryville had a good week. They didn't really play that good of opponents, and you said it like perfectly. A shtick team. Every team has a shtick, right? Team Fish Taco, their shtick is that they get an early lead. Maryville, their shtick is that you can just kind of bait them in a lot of times. And I think that Niles and Odd Orange are going to have to learn that discipline. And you said it best, right? Like Niles and Odd Orange are not new to this league. These are not rookies who will listen to the veterans and say like, oh yeah, you're right, I should do that. Like these are veterans, and so I think there's a reason that Niles and Orange aren't currently playing in the LCS, and I think that's one of the reasons. I don't want
it's
to be a
funny that you
jerk. I
say
just, so you know,
it's funny that you say you're the negative one because
you were the
I'm the
negative
one
one.
that says, yeah, I'm the one that
I
says they're
know.
10. So it's funny that you said that. And it also, like, technically, if they get eighth, it's still good because they get playoffs. Eighth is
Yeah,
the minimum
that's
for
true.
playoffs, right? They get lower bracket there, but it's the minimum for
Yes.
playoffs.
Yes. Eighth makes a top eight make playoffs.
So eighth is a victory anyway because they get playoffs. I
Yeah,
think
fair
I
enough.
think anything regarding playoffs is probably a victory for Maryville. I still don't think they're going to get it, but also one thing that I'm kind of glad that they are showing, and it's something that I feel like teams that are expected to be bad should replicate. And I hope that that doesn't sound as bad as it sounded after I said it, but it feels like if you're able to make teams fall into chaos with you, you have better chances at playing the game. Because if
Yeah,
you get outplayed with your hands, the best thing you can do is bring them down to your level. As bad as
yeah.
that sounds. Like the closer you are in level, the easier it is for you to actually play. And I think that Maryville is a really good team at doing that. As long as they don't get blown out, they grab you by the leg and they throw you into the cave with them. And they make sure that you stay down there for as long as possible and try and win the game with that. And I feel like that's a good idea for lower level teams or for teams that maybe don't have a set style. Like the closer you are able to make the teams be in level with you, the easier it is for you to try and play. And as a side note, any teams try and replicate this when you go against international competition,
I
like teams that are clearly better than you. The closer you are in terms of badness, the easier it is for you to actually win against them.
You saw that tweet as well. I saw a tweet that was like, why don't, teams like NA and EU just have more pocket picks and bust out weird metas? Why are we just like
Oh,
LCK light? Okay, never
I
mind. Maybe you
don't.
didn't see the tweet. Maybe you're just
Yeah,
so
I didn't
smart.
see it. I agree with that, but I didn't see it. It's still
It-
like
It's
you
like,
the it's also like it's the thing that happens as well in normal sports. Like you don't play
yeah,
to what the enemy wants to do. You play to whatever you think it's better, and you make them feel the pain. You don't want them to have fun. You want them to be mad. You want them to be irritable. You don't want them to play to their best because their best is going to win against you. So you want to grab them and make them play to your level. That's the best strategy for teams that are clearly worst. Just like that.
true.
Hmm. Fair enough. Fair enough. I do certainly think Maryville can drag teams into the mud with them for sure, and make these later games chaotic. They've definitely shown that throughout this week. So let's see if they're going to be able to do it against some of the better teams. We talked about wildcard a fair bit already. I don't want to give another shout out to Zamudo here, though. We kind of breezed past it in Player of the Week. He was TDS's Player of the Week. He's competing for it for mine as well. Yeah, I don't know. This guy just looks great. Like, even on his Malphite and Ornn games, he's really impressing me. That might be a little confirmation bias there, just because I've been hyped on this kid for a while, but I feel like mechanically, especially, I think his frontline play is really good. I think
Yeah.
he's Ornn combos are great, and I can't believe I'm talking about like Ornn combos in professional play. I feel like everybody in the world can do Ornn combos, but like I don't know, his E charge to knock up into having already cast the Call of the Forge God and a recast double the knock
That
up.
was so
Like he
smooth.
just executes that so smoothly. I feel like nobody else's Ornn. I rarely see Ornn's like being able to so consistently pull off that combo, and he does it like 4 times this weekend.
It's
His
the
Malphite
LSD
game
of
was
Gordo,
good.
I'll
His
tell you.
Akshan game was iffy, but I like that he's willing to play it. He very interesting player to me. I want to see him keep going on this trajectory.
And there's good potential for him to go into the LCS, considering the top lane prowess right now. I feel like he has a lot of space open eventually. Maybe not this year because teams are scared to Trial by Fire. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of Trial by Fire, and I would be willing to put Samudo right into LCS just to see how he does. But I know a lot of people aren't willing to do that. So at the very least, this year he probably won't get the chance. But next year, I would be surprised if no team is at the very least eyeing him for a potential upgrade. Dignitas, I'm looking at you. Reach may look good, but he's a Korean and he has to go. So I would think about Samudo. For the love of God, your team is not that great.
Yeah, I think the team, if anyone's going to pick him up, please be TSM, dude. If I have to watch Hanser play one more game of League of Legends, I'm going to lose my mind. This guy,
If
he's
you're gonna
so
one trick
old.
Malphite, Zamudo's Malphite looking pretty good.
I know.
NA
But TSM's
talent
not going to
on
do that because
fire.
TSM hates NA. Because
True.
Reggie
Well,
would
TSM
rather,
is not going to be here next year,
I know,
technically, no?
just mailing it in, dude. I mean, realistically, that's why Hanser still has a team because Reggie's like, who can I call that I can pay pennies to and will play with for me for a split?
Or at the very least, the one's more split. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's switch from the positives to the negatives here. Let's talk a little bit about some of
Yeah.
our teams that have disappointed us this week that have dropped down in the rankings.
TDS
Let's start off. Let's start off with Disguised. I want to talk about both of them because we've kind of skipped past them for most of the week. Let's talk about Disguised. I mean, a rough week for Disguised, I would say, given their expectations. They end up 2-4. Are we hitting the panic button on Disguised at this point, or are we willing to kind of write it off?
Well, I don't think Toast is hitting the panic button just because he already kind of had a horrible Valorant roster and he went through it. I wouldn't expect that to be the case here with his roster. And in the same vein, like I said with Maryville, as long as you get 8th, you get playoffs, so that should be good enough. I feel like DSG, as long as you get 6th, that's playoffs upper bracket, that's good enough. Now, expectations are still high for them. Second week, maybe not the best, but I still think that they can be really, really good. And individually, I think their players weren't that bad, particularly top side. Bot lane is the one that I'm getting a bit more worried, and it's particularly on Mitch. Mitch, I'm still not sure what to make of, and I feel like he's the one that has to step up a bit more with team play to make this team shine a bit more, because I feel like he's the one that gets a bit more exploited compared to the rest of the members on the ESG.
Yeah, you know my feelings about this team. You know how obviously I think I was the lowest on this team. I think I put them in third, which was the lowest
Yep.
ranking for them, and out of everyone. And I'm gonna say, I think that a lot of my fears were correct about this team, which is that they, I just dude, I feel bad because I like Toast as a person, and I'm glad he's investing in the scene. I don't think that they have a winning mentality or a winning style at the Disguised Toast facility, and I think DSG Toast is just I just don't know if I believe in it right now, and I think this proved it to me, at least for this week. Now I will refer back to what I said about Maryville, about bad teams having good weeks and good week teams having bad weeks. They will bounce back. They just have too much talent to not bounce back. But I think that I think this shows that this team is not a top two team yet, and I think that this week kind of proves me correct, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I almost so like I'm not gonna jump off this Disguise train after just this week. Spoiler alert. I'm still gonna be believing in them to be pretty at least top 4 coming into like the next
Oh yeah,
upcoming weeks. Like I don't think this is indicative of where they're at the performance this week. I do think like I'm interested to see if they make some changes to their like champion priority. Some stuff comes off as weird. Like they put a lot of priority on Fake God Renekton, right, and rightfully so. His Renekton is insane. He develops massive CS leads up there every game, even in both games up against Wildcard, right? He gets neutralized to some degree by Zamudo, but he is building up like 20, 30 CS leads. He's getting tons of turret plates in the one-on-one. He's like really, really powerful on that pick and is a huge threat. But between like the amount of prio they put on it and how useless top lane is, plus the fact that like They have like I feel I don't know if you guys noticed this too. I feel like they have weird Zaya priority. Like they just take
Yeah.
Zaya super high, higher than most teams. It feels like Meech has just been kind of like whatever on it. I don't know. It's been very strange for me. I wonder if that's the adaptation that comes through. Um, I don't know. A lot to note here. A lot of their losses are very strange though. It does feel like they have been getting punished through the bot lane to some degree. They have been getting punished. Like they've just had some really weird late game team fights sometimes. Like Tomo being up way high farther than anyone else. Tomio, not
Yeah.
Tomo. And yeah, I don't know. I'm very confused at what I've seen out of Disguised. I hope they can show us a little bit more consistency in the coming weeks.
Well, technically they are already playing for topside, and the meta changes for topside, especially with the changes in the patch.
Maybe.
Then that they already kind of are making it work for the future. But since we're still on the point where top lane is not that useful, it's more clear that the over priority for Fagot didn't work out that well. I I'm in between with them. I already said like as long as they qualify for playoffs should be good enough. My expectations with them are still that I think they are going to be a top three, top four team. So I don't think I'm getting off the train the boat what I'm not
The
getting off of them
vehicle.
just yet. Yeah, anything that it's involving getting off of, I'm not getting off just yet.
I'm staying on. That's
Stay
Yeah,
on the vehicle.
but the thing that it's keeping me on like on check is like I'm saying the AD carry. I feel like Mitch has to step it up a bit more. And then also it's a weird thing because I think the top side has been playing great, but it feels like there's a disconnect between Tomio and Young still. Like that's one of the other things that I'm kind of surprised with. They feel like one of the top teams that have the most disconnected mid jungle synergy, and I hope that they are able to fix it quickly enough. I think it's not something that they cannot work on, but it's something that feels so weird when you have two players so good as them and they are already performing individually really well, but the synergy between the two is so weirdly disconnected, and it's surprising to see. But it's certainly also one of the things that make them not be as good to see as TLC or FlyQuest see.
hmm.
Like those two teams have better mid jungle synergy. Even like even Wildcard and Marybeal as well. I think they were the mid jungle synergy is way better with them than whatever DSG has. I will go even farther actually. I think there's multiple teams in the league that have better mid lane jungle synergy than DSG.
Yeah.
And
Onet
in
Rosethorn.
yeah, like I honestly feel like there's Team Fish Tackle has a better mid jungle synergy than them, but they just have better players, so they can outpower them. But this week it was more apparent than in previous ones.
No, I don't know if I'll go that far, but like I agree. It's also like it's really hard to differentiate like individual player skill from synergy and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. An awkward run so far for DSG. Let's see how they're going to be able to do in the coming weeks. Last team I want to talk about here is Evil Geniuses. They go off a cliff this week as they end up going. They were 1-5, right? Am I crazy
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
just as a side note as well, quickly, Nyarko isn't here as well for the week where EG does the worst.
Oh my god!
No.
I mean,
See,
I think this. To be fair, for Nyarko can feel okay. This is gonna be the first of many. I think they have
Oh,
Whoa,
they look.
whoa, 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 whoa.
whoa, yay!
Not if I have something to say
All
about
right,
it.
well, we'll let you say
EG,
something about it in a second. But this team, oh my goodness, I am just beside myself right now. I think King is like looking like the only good player here. I am very disappointed in what I've seen, and their only win is up against the ever inconsistent Disguised because Smoothie keeps landing Blitzcrank hooks. That is not what I want to see out of my veteran based developmental team with a professional coaching staff. I mean, ugh.
I will say, as I was the highest on EG by far, and my argument was they simply can't do worse than they did last split. And I think I also said like they're gonna develop because of their time spent together. This was an acid flashback for them. This was post-traumatic stress disorder. They woke up and it was spring of 2023, and they spent a week in there. They will not. I think I disagree. I think that the first week is what you should look at because that was the new EG that I think people were expecting. Are they going to be a top three team? No. Are they going to be a top 5 team? Maybe. But I think that I think that this week was not indicative of their strengths. And you brought up a good point, Gordo, which I like to highlight: professional coaching staff. They will have meetings, they will talk, and they will figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. And they have a superstar in King, like you talked about, who I think that can really, I think is an LCS level player if he can get a good team comp around him. And so I am, I hate EG as an organization, but this team I believe in.
You know what's funny? They started the week with a 1-1 against DSG, and I thought, okay, that's great.
Oh
They
boy, they
1-1
got it.
DSG.
Both of
wow,
these
They
teams are
showed the
so
real
good.
deal. And then you get it's like 100 thieves on the LCS. Wow, they perfect game FlyQuest. Okay, no. Okay, I guess not the case. Yeah, I'm not still down on EGC because I do think that it's second week, so there's nothing bad with them failing this hard on the second week. They played against FlyQuest, they played against DSG, and they got a 1 game out of the 4. So technically, that shouldn't be the worst. But then you look at DSG and then you begin second guessing yourself. And then they also lost against Team Fish Taco, which is the biggest anomaly in the NACL as of now. So it's so weird to try and guess where EGC is, and I feel like it's even worse than trying to guess TFT, because at least with TFT you can make the argument, okay, they're a newer team, they are coming in fresh, they are something that it's weird that it's affecting my perception of reality, but at the very least I can understand that they are newer. EGC is not that new. They have King now, but the other 4 players are not new. And if this is the well, Bonfire is saying that we should get the first week performance as the baseline. But I feel like it's not that the first week performance is their baseline, is that I think first week was a fake week for almost everyone, apart from TLC. Like
Yeah, maybe.
everything else, it feels like first week was the biggest fake week possible for almost all the teams. So the perception of every team is actually not the first week, it's this week potentially and then the next one. And if that's the case, I think EGC probably goes 1-5 again.
Yeah,
That's the big thing with
yeah,
them that
I'm
I'm worried
I'm real
about.
disappointed in what we've seen. I mean, Shaden shows some sparks here and there, but even he, like, it feels like almost uncharacteristically, given what we saw from him last split, is like over aggressing in weird places, and it's like this should be like his meta too. It's like there's Kha'Zix and there's Kindred, and like you can even get a Graves in there here and there. Those are like the kind of picks I want to see out of
Yep.
Shaden. Um, he just hasn't been able to really piece it together. I think Ryoma looks terrible. Like Ryoma just like uncharacteristically almost is just like having really tough matchups up against, the likes of I don't know, who do they play against? Like they play against some tough mid laners this week. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah,
uh,
Shochi, APA, and Young.
Sho
It wasn't that.
no Shochi, Young, and Spyrax, right? Because they play Fly Challengers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
um, does lose to Spyrax too. Shochi and APA, Shochi and Shochi and Young, I'm pretty high on, so it's like I'll give him a pass there. But overall, still, it's like I would want him to be challenging these guys, right? Given his history and his experience and how he's been able to do at this level before, he's just not really doing it. Soul continues to disappoint me, man. I don't know what's up with Soul. Like it's crazy when a player looks better on TSM. That's just something you don't see in the modern era very often, but he looked a lot better on TSM. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious to see where they go from here for sure, but I'm disappointed in what we've seen thus far, and I'm going to be pretty low on Evil Geniuses going forward.
I'm glad I put them below the half line. Like I didn't put them fifth because I'm honestly not thinking that they are going to go over
I
that.
think I put them
Six,
sixth.
yeah, six was a good enough
Where did I put
place
him?
for them.
Hold on.
Fourth.
Now I'm
You're
now
up
I'm
there,
good
right? You were
for
like third, I think, right?
fourth. I'm
Like,
in fourth. I'm
No,
in
he
fourth.
has DSG third as me,
Yeah,
so
I'm in
he has
fourth.
the fourth.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, fourth.
The lever. Mwah. Give me AG, baby. I again don't like the organization, but give me this roster.
Yeah. I
I'm
like. I
just as quick.
Go
Oh
ahead.
no, no, because I wanted to jump a bit onto fear, so
Okay,
probably
yeah.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, might be worth considering that we could see We might see Armeo down here at some point if they ever decide to put Shaden on the main roster. Um, it's not. They announced it as a possibility, right? Like they announced Shaden as like the sixth man on that Evil Geniuses roster. So like clearly it's an option they're considering. Um, wouldn't be my call out. Like the Evil Geniuses, the Live Evil podcast put out a tweet asking how many games do we expect Shaden to play, and I put my vote in there on 0. But so I'm not going to be one to believe it, but it's been called out by the organization as a possibility. I'm curious to see if that ends up happening. Although if Shaden keeps playing like this, I would not give that man LCS time, especially with Armeo looking very good.
Yeah, I also think Armeo was looking quite great coming back into the LCS, so wouldn't put a lot on that.
Academy
Unless they
talent,
already
baby.
eliminated, don't expect it.
Armeo, baby. TLC 2-time winner. The 2-time.
Sure.
I never believed in TLC.
Sorry.
Now.
You know me. I got to get my Team Liquid bragging rights in whenever I can. Back to back, Armeo.
All right. Let's hear it about Fear TDS, and then we'll close things out.
Yeah, I feel like it just making the same note on Fear. I feel like they finally woke up. The
Agreed.
first week, like I was saying, first week from Fear, like many other teams, was a really weird week. And I think that this week they played it out really, really well. Just trying to remember the teams that they went for. Like obviously 2-0 DGC. They were able to, yes, they lost to TLC, but honestly, TLC is still TLC. And then 2, and I think a really convincing, the one that makes me the biggest, like, believer, or at least the one that makes me think that Fear finally woke up, is the 2 against Supernova, because I think that was such a convincing win for them. The players really looked like they were coming back towards their normal level. And I think particularly Perry and Shochi looked way, way better than their first week performances. So really glad that they were able to show up like this. And it feels like we're now getting the actual Fear that was appearing last split.
Yeah, I agree there. I think it's a much better week for Shochi and Perry this week. I think Philip shows some really good stuff too. His Cassante games in particular. I think he has some really great Cassante performances that are just going to stick in my mind. So I'm excited to see Philip continue to grow, right? Like, I'm not out of the Philip train by any means. I feel like a lot of people are going to see, like, Fly Challengers decide to go for Faisal and think, like, that's it for the Philip story, right? His path is cut off there, but I hope that the future of the NACL is like you don't have to be on these org affiliate teams, especially because the org affiliate teams are a dying breed. So Philip, I think if he keeps it up, could be one of those players that's in consideration for promotion up to the LCS at some point, especially because he had that one split already and he looks solid. And if there's anything that LCS teams have shown us over the last decade plus, it's that the number one way to get promoted to the LCS is to end up there coincidentally and look pretty good. Like that's been the recipe for almost every rookie ever in the history of the game. Because they just don't start rookies in vacuums almost ever. It's always somebody subbing in and looking good.
The only except for Jojo Pune,
Yep.
is like the only like, wow, this guy
And
could
Danny.
be good.
Yeah,
And
Peter
Danny.
Dunn's an exception though. He's not American.
I don't think Danny was. Did people hype up Danny, or was
No.
it just like
Nobody hyped him up, but they did bring him in and like let him be starter without
Yes.
him having like had to be an E sub at some point.
This is true.
I think
Jojo and
I feel
Busio.
like I think they hyped him, no, but they hyped him with a different name, and then he name changed.
He was
Was he?
Shiro before. I
He was
remember
Shiro,
like
like,
Peter Dunn
pink.
believed in him the whole time. I remember the EG staff because people were questioning the promotion and they were like, maybe long term it'll be better than Deftly was their AD before. But I remember EG staff tweeting like, no, we think this is an upgrade right now, and everybody's like, oh really? And now in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, Danny was a lot better than Deftly, huh?
Yeah, surely EG treated Danny well. Aware.
Yeah, let's be honest. Definitely was there was only one person that believed in Definitely the whole time, and I was still surprised that that happened when he was there. So honestly, doesn't surprise me that he went over. That Danny was the one selected over him. But maybe I'm misremembering. Like I think Danny had the hype, but with another name, and then he name changed for some reason.
He definitely went by another
I
name.
think
He
his
was
name-
Shiro.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of people believing in him at the
I don't
time, but
remember.
at
I
least
just
I
remember-
didn't. I thought he would be bad. I'll own that.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
That's-
okay, like
Nobody thought he was
I-
going to be good. It was like,
I didn't think
I
of him
may
at
be
all.
misremembering, so it's not that big. Also, still question the fact that he went for Danny when it wasn't even his name, but
I know.
that's another story.
We would have to fill a whole nother podcast episode with that conversation.
yeah. Well, NA talent, baby. Let's go for it. I would love to see it. I'd love to see more promotions come through, and we'll continue to look for him here. But that's going to be about an hour, so that's going to do it for this episode of the Salt Mine. Went a little off the rails there, but got to cover all of our big storylines from the week, and we will be back next week to cover those third week of games. We're going to hit mid-split after next week, so maybe we'll do a little mid-split awards stuff. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about how the power rankings are shaking up. Will be a bunch of fun. Hope to see you there. That's going to be next week. So until then, enjoy the 30 games of NACL this coming weekend, and we'll see you next time.